We good to go? I'd like to welcome everyone to the Special Planning and Development Committee meeting of February 2nd, 2021. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we are, because of modern technology, we're coming to you from the traditional territory of the Squamish and Sechelt First Nations. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd like to call for the approval of the agenda. Mayor Beamish, thank you. Councillor Dandretti, thank you. We have 3 reports on this agenda. I'd like to recommend that we receive them all. Corporate Officer.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you could call the vote for the approval of the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
All in favor of the agenda as, thank you. We have 3 reports in this agenda, and I'd like to receive them all at this time. If we could have a motion for that. Councillor Dandretti, seconded by Councillor Ladwig. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And I understand at this time on item 3.3 that Councillor Ladwig will be recusing herself from this item, and you can give us your reasoning at that time if you would, Councillor Ladwig. Thank you. At this point, I'll turn it over to Planner Thomas for a development permit for form and character DPA 5 for Unit 1 at 292 Gower Point Road. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair Kroll. I'm just going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, so the town of Gibsons has received an application for a development permit for form and character for the proposed renovation to create a patio at Unit 1 at 292 Gower Point Road. Now, the property at 292 Gower Point Road is a mixed-use commercial building. So residences are accessed from Periwinkle Lane at the back, and then the commercial businesses are accessed from Gower Point Road along the sidewalk. So you've got the where the trading post is, and then you've got a couple of businesses that are on an upstairs area here. The commercial unit was formerly a grocery store, and has more recently been the trading post. So the applicant is looking to renovate the unit and redesign the existing ramp right here to create a patio for customers to be able to sit at. And this photo shows you the unit in its current condition. This is during the snow, so that's why it looks a bit funny. The form and character application looks specifically at the patio, which will be clad, which would clad the existing concrete in a wood effect material along here, as you can see. They would also construct an open roof structure with 8x8 cedar posts and cedar rafters. Glass panels are proposed to cover 1/3 of the rafters to provide some weather protection. The glass will retain the natural light into the unit, and then 2 new windows are proposed along this elevation to bring more natural light into the space. The facade of the building is to remain the same in keeping with the rest of the building, and these steps would be added along the east elevation. Now the west ramp will remain for accessibility, and that will be brought up to code. The development permit includes 2 new signs. Both would be laminated cedar. The sign on the west elevation would be a directory sign advertising all businesses in the strata. And then the sign on the south would be a wall sign for the business in Unit 1. And these signs would replace the existing backlit box signage. Staff have assessed the proposal with the DPA 5 guidelines, which is shown on page 7 and 8 of the staff report, and conclude that the proposal meets the intent of the DPA 5 guidelines. Now, the extension of the patio will leave a 2-meter unobstructed sidewalk for pedestrians to use, and a 1.8-meter sidewalk unobstructed between the tree well and the patio. Now, the existing building is not aligned, as you can see, with the property lines and the road. And the exact dimensions of the patio will be determined at buildings permit with a survey. Now, while you can see that our aerial shows that the proposed patio will be on private property, there is a possibility that the patio may encroach onto town land, especially in this corner here, where the building is closest to the lot line. So we use the encroachment bylaw number 788 in cases such as this to formalize an agreement between the applicant and the town. And this bylaw, specifically Schedule B, allows businesses in the Lower Gibsons area to use portions of the sidewalk for their business. And it was developed under the Lower Gibsons Revitalization Project. So Schedule B of the encroachment bylaw is administered by staff and would be dealt with at building permit. Now, Mike's Place and Leo's have a similar encroachment for their patio. As you can see here, the map shows that this is Mike's Place and this is Leo's, and the buildings are built to the property line, and then the patios extend slightly further out. And as you might be able to see, there's a 1.5 meter unobstructed sidewalk between the tree well and the patio. So we have, during the revitalization, they changed the concrete panels so that you knew how far you were meant to leave or retain for unobstructed pedestrian use. So referrals were sent to the Gibsons Fire Department, the town's Infrastructure Services Department, and the Building Department. As you can see, a building permit will be required. The Infrastructure Services Department have explained that they would like to see a minimum side width of 1.8 meters at the tree wells, and the Fire Department have recommended approval with comments on the commercial kitchen at building permit. So the encroachment bylaw requires a 1.5 meter strip vertically clear for pedestrian movement, and the applicant proposes to provide a 1.8 strip of sidewalk clear. So the proposal meets the bylaw requirements as well as the DPA 5 design guidelines, and therefore staff recommend issuance of the development permit. Now, the applicants David Longman and Amrit Maharaj are in the audience and are available to speak to the form and character application should you wish.
Thank you, Planner Thomas. We'll open it to any questions from council and our advisory group. Council? Mayor Beamish. You're on mute, sir.
Is it possible to ask the planner to put back up that aerial photo of the building that shows the front porch on it? That's it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just looking at that. The blue area on the end that kind of is adjacent to the parking lot. Is that parking lot common property to that development?
Yes. This is the existing ramp right now. So that's just showing where the ramp is.
Yeah.
So yes.
So the development itself has access to that parking lot for parking purposes. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. The second question I had is that given that it's going to be a restaurant, is there going to be an exhaust fan on the roof, or is there already an exhaust fan on the roof? Because in some cases, those can be annoying and noisy and give off some odor to the residents. And I'm thinking of the residents in the condos next door.
I might have to defer to David Longman, who's the property owner, for that question.
Can you, can we have our, thank you. Can we get Mr. Longman moved in, please? We can see you, Mr. Longman. You're still on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Mayor, I think you asked a question about hood fans. Yes, there will be a hood fan assembled. It's going to be in the the east side of the parking lot that is, the east side, which is an entrance to the roll-up garage door, which forms the loading bay to the west, on the east side of the building, I should say. That is is there going to be, will make smell and noise? Probably no different than any of the other ones in Lord Gibsons, including the one in Sandy's Bakery that exists to date right there in the same development. And being a strata member in this for the last 2 years, we haven't heard any complaints about the existing hood fan on site. So I can't speak to speculative nature of whether they'll complain about this, whether they would be concerned about this or not. It's a good point. It's a great observation. I don't know that it's at this point an issue of form and character, but I digress. I don't know what I can say other than that.
Any follow-up, Mayor Beamish?
No, I'm just thinking of I know there's one at a restaurant is near my place now, just off of Martin Road there. And as I will take my walks at night, I can hear it quite loudly. And I thought, that would be annoying if I was living a few doors closer, but I don't hear it from my house. But so.
Yeah, I don't know the one you're speaking about, Mr. Mayor, but I suspect that if it's noisy, it's because it's older. Like I can speak to the one we have at the hood, at the 101 that I've never personally even heard from the park standing right in front of the building.
Right.
And that would be true with the half a dozen other ones that I put in. But I suspect over the length, as they age, they probably do tend to get noisier.
Yeah, possibly. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Mr. Longman. Any other, Councillor Ladwig?
Yeah, I had a question about parking as well. I noticed that we didn't include parking in the guidelines, and I assume that's because this is a relatively minor renovation to the building. Is that the case?
Because we're dealing with form and character, parking doesn't really come into play at this particular point. I appreciate it is
still form. And so, I mean, I guess what I was wondering about was back to Mayor Beamish's question about the parking lot next to the development. Is that parking accessible to the customers at all?
That parking is currently dedicated only to commercial use, whether it's for the individual employees working at the location and their team, or the public.
Okay, so
that the parking down below, just to qualify, is not part of doesn't form part of the residential parking in the development itself.
So just to clarify, then the only parking for this business is street parking. Is that correct?
No. All that parking to the west side of the building, and including the underground parking lot that's there, is all dedicated to this space. This space and the other commercial business on the second story.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So the reason I bring this up is just simply because, like personally, I love the outdoor patio. I support the more outdoor patios you can have at Gibsons, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't have a problem with the variance at all. But if it is possible to get signage at all directing customers to any parking available, I think that'd be really helpful.
Okay.
I don't know how many stalls are there that customers could use, but just because it's a bit, I find that building a little bit confusing. I don't know whose parking lot belongs to who, and I think that would be a benefit.
Okay.
Just for clarification, that parking lot originally was part of the parking lot for Ken's Lucky Dollar before the site was redeveloped. And they built over part of the parking lot to create the second level of commercial and then the townhomes above it. But as Planner Thomas mentioned, the residential parking is from Periwinkle Lane.
I understood that. I read that in the report that residents get into the building through Periwinkle Lane, and that customers, or no, not customers, it was that commercial comes through the parking lot, but I wasn't clear if that was just people working in the building or if there's actually space for customers. So if there is, that would be that'd be great.
As a rule of thumb, just with other commercial developments we're involved in, the general rule of business is to try to keep the parking open available for customers and ask for your staff and team to either commute or carpool or park farther away from the site to leave the parking available to customers. It's just good practice. I know that that's what the current businesses do in there right now, is they try to keep it vacant for customers, not for parking for staff coming to work there during the day.
Okay, great. So just signage there would be fantastic. Thanks.
Perfect.
Mayor Beamish?
One of the recent concerns in the last couple of years we've had from some of the businesses and people in that area has been the increased amount of takeout garbage and places to put it. And if you could consider where you might want to, where we could put some garbage pails or contribute to some additional garbage containers in town, because they, when there's takeout garbage, that people walk about half a block away and then they're looking for a place to throw something. And then other commercial businesses down there were complaining about that as well. So something to think about when we're increasing the opportunity for takeout in the area.
Any other, Councillor Dandretti?
Thank you, Chair Crow. I support the project. Yeah, it's a great addition to the town. I like the patio too. I have just an overall concern, not with this project, but as we allow the use of the sidewalk, I can see in the near future, since the goal of is to increase tourism, that the trees with the cement around could be a liability. I understand that a while ago there was even a presentation to council, but I'm just overall, if there's any goal of addressing that, because if you have 4 people walking, it could be someone who step on the cement close to the tree. And this is not because of this particular project, because other businesses are already doing that. But as this is a strip with a high traffic volume during the summer, so I wonder if the town has any goal, because it could be a liability for the town.
My understanding from the presentation that we had earlier that from staff in the report that we had, that we're looking at addressing the types of trees we're planting so they don't cause sidewalks to heave. And this is going to be an ongoing project moving forward, as I believe the trees on that side of the street have been properly planted, but perhaps our CAO can address that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, I think it was last fall we had the presentation on the issue of the roots rising and so on. But I think the Councillor Dandretti perhaps was talking about is maintaining a safe pathway and open space for people to travel across, and that when planning and bylaws sort of review the issuance of these encroachments, that's one of the things that we maintain is that spacing. And there's a couple areas that is a little bit tight, but for the most part, there should always be space in the sidewalk for as a sort of a travel lane for people to move freely back and forth for the space that it has at the moment.
In this, go ahead, a follow-up.
Just a clarification. I was talking more, obviously, we are not removing the trees, but the fact that there's a cement around the tree, and anyone that is walking, if you have, let's say, 3 people walking distractedly, and then someone comes on the opposite direction, suddenly you shift, and it could be enough to trip. And I think it's important that we consider this as statistically, it's gonna happen. And that's when it's my only concern, not with this specific project, but I think it's important that we have this in mind. I don't know if it's easy to take the barrier so it's flat, but that's my specific concern.
David's not here to comment, so I'm going to play armchair engineer, but those would add it over time just to contain the soil around the tree more than it's in a response. And I think in the newer designs, the trees are flat. There's no box around it so much, but different treatments as well. But I think there's in our capital program, already includes some sidewalk upgrades and tree replacement, but I see Dave is here.
Director Newman, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, and we have the minimum widths required for sidewalks, and we're ensuring that we meet our minimum width. And as far as tripping hazards on sidewalk panels, etc. Whoops, I just lost something. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, my computer just did something weird. So one, we would continue to do our sidewalk inspections and so on, and making sure that we address any issues with the sidewalk, and that doesn't change with this addition. Sidewalk width, we're ensuring that we maintain the minimum, at least the minimum width of our sidewalk in this area. And I believe we our minimum width sidewalk is 1.5 meters, 1.8 in higher traffic areas. And I believe we've asked for 2 meters in this case to make sure that we maintain at least 2 meters spacing between the trees. And I think that kind of the fact of the matter is that, you outside of that area, as far as the any obstacles that you might have, there's always obstacles that pedestrians have to watch out for. And I think as long as we've got I feel as long as we've got the minimum width of sidewalk and the sidewalk surface is safe to walk on, that we've met our obligations.
I deliberately went down and had a look at the area, and the 2 other patios that currently exist, both Mike's and Leo's, they're at the same level. So I think, people, once they're in the area, very quickly would become aware of the fact that this condition exists where you have the sidewalk widening and narrowing because of trees. And, there are people that perhaps might have, sight impairments or things like that. It might be an issue for, but that's again why the bit of a curb is there, that if someone is walking with a cane, they have that sense that there is an obstacle there. So from the presentation we had last fall, Director Newman, I believe there is a different treatment going forward that is going to be dealt with, that the trees will be level with possible.
Yeah, the tree wells that you're talking about, I think, well, I don't know the history of them exactly, but I know that there has been issues with, as the trees grow, they need more soil, and so that was a way to build up the soil. I'm not. I would much rather see a higher municipal standard for our tree wells. I don't believe that wood landscaping ties quite, would be a municipal standard, shall we say. And so as we move forward, we're looking at how to best treat those areas, and there's pros and cons to the curbs. As I say, we're going to be, as we gradually replace these trees and so on, that we'll be looking at what those standards are.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Any other comment? Mr. Sutton, anything that you would like to?
Sure, I just would quickly say that I do quite like this addition to the building. As far as form and character go, the wood beams, I think they're really in keeping with the sort of West Coast beach feel and mimics other things we have in town. The one thing I wonder about, and it's not really a major concern, but half glass cover doesn't really make sense to me. I'd sort of, for consistency, rather see it all glass, or not glass and maybe perhaps retractable panels as the weather dictates. But that would really be my only comment. And then maybe also wonder if it's going to be sort of plastic enclosed with heaters for the winter time as well.
Mr. Longman, did you care to respond at all to that?
So some of those questions will be sort of refined as we move through building permit. If you wanted to request that heaters were added, it's not for me to speak on behalf of the new tenant that's coming to occupy the space for what they're prepared to spend money on above and beyond what we've shown here today. But I suspect it's probably pretty good business to keep the patio some of the time, seasonally, of course. Outside of the glass panels, I like I like the thought of the glass panel because it makes it feel like a pergola that isn't attached to the building in this sort of really material way with trying to roof over it. So I thought that component worked well like that, but you know, these things are subjective, right? I did at one point debate covering it all over with the rafters covered over with a pine and then a roofing surface over top, but that created issues of lighting with darker months of the year and stuff like that.
I would only just like to clarify, I like the glass. I'm only just wondering about doing it all in glass rather than leaving it half exposed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I guess my rationale there was it's just that it's such a big, the building, I should know this number off the top of my head. I'm going to look down at my plans. The building's, the patio is 72 feet wide by 8 feet. So let's go with 10. You know, that's like 600 square feet of patio. I don't know that you need 600 square feet of covered space in it, but you know, it's not a bad idea. But is it necessary? You know, I don't know. Like it's interesting to me. I suspect in the summertime and in hot months, it's probably nice to have that little bit of added air movement that might not have that space on there. But I can speak to the tenants about those ideas as well.
Was there any
thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, as I say, it was just a minor sort of suggestion anyway.
Well,
Otherwise, really like it. Totally.
I appreciate that.
Councillor Ladwig?
I don't have a preference one way or the other, if it's glass railing or halfway down all the way or otherwise. I will say, as a woman that wears skirts in the summers and all these people walking right by there, you might just really want to think about the glass railing.
Yeah, I have thought about that. To be candid, it's interesting, Larry, I'm glad you brought that up because you are sitting at an elevated height, that only makes that personal space that much more important to qualify. So I'm not convinced we shouldn't take the screening that you see on the front of the concrete and carry it up to at least seat height, which would be very easy to do. Because if you look at what those timber posts are forming on there, they're also forming where an open bar can sit onto, so we could very easily carry the bar counter and carry the screening up to the underside of the bar counter. That might address that. I think that's a good idea.
Any other, Mayor Beamish?
Dave, I note that the materials are exposed wood posts or beams out of cedar. Are they going to be stained, painted, or left to silver, the cedar posts?
Well, we typically, this is another, these are they're not complicated. They're decisions and everything has its costs and benefits. So when we were building multifamily strata properties 15 years ago, we tried to put wood everywhere. And one of the things we've noticed is you got to be careful about how much you add to the maintenance costs, particularly residential stratas for them maintaining forward. So my intent here is to do this in natural cedar, or is to do it in natural cedar. The debate to whether or not you should keep it natural or stain it, as we've shown, with just a clear natural stain to show off and flaunt the nature of West Coast product being used, or you go over with a solid color stain, is also debatable. I like the idea of keeping a natural wood. Usually what happens, Mr. Mayor, is sometime down the road, 3-5 years from now, trying to ever get it back to that beautiful quality of wood in this West Coast environment that's so hard on wood. Usually people will pivot to moving towards solid surfaces over them at a later date when they lose that.
The traditional use of cedar, yeah, the traditional use of the cedar is to allow it to be natural and just build silver up, and that's actually looks quite beautiful after a few years. So
yeah, I agree. That's a popular thing that more people should be considering.
Yeah. Chair, I move the recommendations.
Okay, do we have someone to second that? Calling the question, all in favor? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Longman, and we look forward to seeing this project move forward.
Thanks very much, you guys. I appreciate all your energy you put into our community.
And I had to look, for anyone that has the opportunity, please do have a look at the Coho website. It's a really quite an exciting, vibrant project, and I think I think it has the potential of adding a sort of a great opportunity for a lot of entrepreneurs in the community. So
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Alrighty. we're going to come back to item 3.2 and back to Planner Thomas for a development permit for form and character for a garden suite at 931 Davis Road. Planner Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll. So the town of Gibsons received a development permit application for a garden suite at 931 Davis Road. An official community plan and zoning amendment was adopted in March 2020 to allow for a garden suite on this property. And then the wider area was rezoned in October 2020 to allow for the same. Over the past few years, the planning staff have been working with the property owner to bring the property into compliance, with the next step being the development permit to formalize the garden suite, which was converted from a garage in late 2018. As you can see, we're on stage 2. Garden suites are designated under DPA number 8, and staff analysis of the application can be found on pages 4 to 6 of our staff report. The west elevation shows double wide glass doors and a large window bringing natural light into the suite right here. The south elevation incorporates a bay window and a small private patio, which is accessed from the front door, which is right here. The north elevation, which faces the main house and the street beyond, uses the original garage doors as a design feature. It's staff's understanding that this door isn't usable anymore. And the garden suite has been painted in a forest green colour, which matches the main house, and the applicant has used a red access for the trim, which promotes some visual interest. Staff conclude that this garden suite conforms with most of the design guidelines and recommend the issuance of the permit. They would then apply for their building permit to bring it up to code. The application has been referred to the building department, infrastructure services, as well as the fire department. As you can see, the building department have asked for a building permit. Infrastructure services have asked that the driveway and the roadside swale be brought up to standard. Development cost charges are payable, and then we need to look at water meters and the sanitary inspection chambers. The fire department have said that their interests are unaffected by this proposal. So staff recommend authorizing the development permit, and Belinda Wheatley is in the audience and is available for any questions on the form and character for this garden suite. So I'll stop sharing and.
Thank you, Planner Thomas. Questions, anyone? Councillor Dandretti?
Thank you. There's I have two questions points. First, one is the existing driveway has been retained, and then staff note that some of the driveway that is no longer used could be removed to increase the lot permeability. So my question is, I understand there's a minimum for permeability for each lot. What is the case with this development? And if the existing development with the garden suite already reached the marks?
Sorry, could you say that question again?
Oh, sorry. I believe there's a minimum of permeable area per lot that you have to comply. So what is the case for this specific lot?
So this property is allowed 45% lot coverage. Now this garden suite was a converted garage. So the garage already had a building permit in place. And so the lot coverage already calculates the garage footprint. So there is no change to the lot coverage with this application.
Mr. Sutton?
Sorry, no, I wasn't indicating any comments. I'm actually fine with this. It seems like it's more or less a formality at this point. So no comment.
I did a drive by the site, and because one of my concerns when I initially reviewing this, I thought with the density of occupancy on the property, that there might be parking issues. But I think they've responsibly addressed the parking issues. There's a covered carport as part of the house for parking. There's 2 parking stalls would be on the east side of the lot, which are sort of diagonal parking. And then there's actually good driveway access to the garage unit that's being converted into the garden suite. So I was quite impressed that they had managed to cover their parking needs on site, and not all of it is paved. To get back to your issue, Councillor Dandretti, some of it is just compacted gravel. Any other questions? Councillor Dandretti?
Thank you. I have a second point. They talk about the garage door shown in figure 4 is the elevation presented to the street. This could be improved with vegetation screening and a pathway to the front door. The civic address should be visible. So when you say it could be improved, has the owner made any commitment to improve?
Not currently, but that's something that the PDC could recommend. So you could add that to your recommendation.
Okay, and if I may, the reason I would like to consider, because this is the first development after the zoning of the area. So to me, it's more like a setting up nice standards, right? To support like a nice neighborhood, because the moment that you allow one property not to go to the highest level. So, I mean, I'm sure the staff has something to propose, but because it's something that does not hit the mark, I think if it's possible, it should for the standards.
Mayor Beamish?
I concur with that. I was the picture on page 27 where it shows the garage door and suggests a design feature. I actually don't think it's a design feature. I think it looks like a garage when you see it like that. And I think if we're going to have these type places, I mean, it could be improved, say with landscaping, so it doesn't look like you're going to drive up there and open the door and drive in. And I think that I think something could be done there to make it look better. I agree.
Planner Thomas, did you have any? I will admit, doing a drive-by, it looked very natural. It looked like a residential home with a detached garage, which, you know, for a neighborhood isn't adverse. The only thing that sort of gives it away that it's more than that are the additional parking spots, if they are in fact fully occupied at the time you look at it. But I will leave it to Planner Thomas to convey those feelings to the owner. Any other comment? Can I ask for someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Dandretti?
Sorry, I'm not moving. Can we make this as a with the recommendation that the owner comes up with some improvement, whether vegetation screening or whatever improvement to ameliorate the situation?
If we were looking at a new development, we would be looking for a landscape plan. I think that's just natural here that we ask for landscaping to go around that to kind of break that wall. That's all. Mm-hmm. To make it look less like a garage door, more like a wall. So some plantings around it, some planters around it, some smaller cedar trees coming up there beside in front of it. Something that makes it just softens the look of that door.
Are you making that motion, sir?
Tagging on to Councillor Dandretti's motion.
Okay, so can I assume you're seconding the motion?
I will.
Okay. Can I call the question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
Okay. So with that recommendation, can we call the question that that the permit for form and character for a garden suite at 931 Davis Road be authorized for a garden suite?
Yeah.
For DP 2020-131. Councillor Dandretti. Will someone second that? Councillor Ladwig, if I call the question. Thank you. All right, moving on to 3.3, and I understand at this point, Councillor Ladwig would like to recuse herself.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll. I'm recusing myself from this proposal because I own a property a few doors down from this particular one, and I wouldn't want to, I may be interested in doing something similar with my property, and I wouldn't want to influence council's decision on this vote. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ladwig. So what we'll do at this time is ask you to leave the meeting, and it is the last item in the reports to be received. So if you'd like to rejoin us, we can send you a text message to rejoin when we've dealt with the issue.
I think you guys will probably just be coming back and ending the meeting probably. So I'll probably, I believe, is that not correct?
We have a brief, we have inquiries following this report, and then we'd be adjourning. So, if you don't mind missing out on inquiries.
I think I can miss that for today.
Thank you for joining us.
Very much. Have a good rest of your meeting. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Planner Thomas.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again.
Thank you.
Okay, so the town of Gibsons has received a variance permit application for 744 Gibsons Way. Now, this variance is to reduce the east side setback, which is right here, for the purpose of facilitating a two-lot subdivision. So as you can see, this is kind of small, but this is the proposed subdivision plan. So it would have proposed lot A at the front, and then a new lot at the back, which would be a buildable area for a duplex. And they would have a shared access going across the front lot to get to the back. The front lot would also share this driveway to go to their garage. And so this house is existing, and the R3 zone requires a building setback of 1.5 meters. Currently, the existing house is located at 1.25 meters from this east side property line, and the accessory building is located at 1.38 meters. The accessory building also should be at 1.5 meters. And so a variance has been requested to legitimize the location of both the existing house and the accessory building in order to subdivide. The existing house is approximately 960 square feet. It's a single story, and the accessory building is used as an office, which the property owners use to work from home. The property owners have stated that the accessory building is really important to retain, as their house is very small and they need this office space to be able to work. So staff considered the request to legitimize or legalize the house reasonable due to the following reasons. The setback relaxation is minor, so it's 25 centimeters for the main house and 12 centimeters for the accessory building. The house is at least 45 to 50 years old from our records. Housing availability is limited, and they'll be creating a new buildable lot, which will provide for more housing. The neighboring properties, as you can see in this aerial, are all oriented in the same way. They're all to the east, which leads staff to believe that the houses were located on this in this way to allow for vehicular access to the rear of the lot. If you can see here, you've got a driveway that comes to the back. Here, this is 744. You can easily drive a car down this side, and again 740 has a garage at the back and a driveway down this side. So staff support the variance request, as it would be unreasonable to request the owner to tear down the house and rebuild prior to subdivision. And therefore, staff recommend notifying neighbours of the proposed variance. And we have Blair Keeling is in the audience, and he can speak to the application should you need.
Planner Thomas, open it to questions or comments. Councillor Dandretti?
Thank you. I have a question. If we give a variance for this building, and in the future they would like to torn the building, let's say in 20 years, or does it mean that they need to comply with the original bylaw, or do they comply with the variance that was given now?
No, the variance would be for this specific lot, so the front lot. And yes, a variance would mean that they would be allowed to build 25 centimeters closer in the future. We are looking at ways to see if we can limit this. So if rebuilding, you would be at 1.5 meters. They have got a building permit currently for a garage, which they have relocated, and that does conform to our bylaw. So that is at 1.5 meters.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor Beamish?
To the planner, how many of those adjacent properties have had lane rights of way taken from them off the back? Does it make any sense to be asking for lane right away in this case?
So there are no properties on the Gibsons Way with Gibsons Way frontage with lane access at the back. There are several properties on the Hillcrest frontage that do have lanes. So if you remember, we had the development permit application for 741, and we staff recommended taking a right of way for a lane. 741 is actually directly behind this lot. So there is a lot to the northwest that does have a lane dedication, but there's nothing adjacent to this lot, nothing really touching this lot with a lane.
Anyone else? Just to your comment, Mayor Beamish, I did bring up the same question about the lane access when we had our pre-meeting prior to this. But the interesting thing is, and it was my assumption, further to Councillor Dandretti's question, that we were grandfathering the office space and the house, that if in the future that the site were to be redeveloped, that at that time it would have to comply with the zoning regulations. So I was sort of wrong in my assumption that it was just for the period of the existence of these current buildings that the variance was being granted. Councillor Dandretti.
I was wondering if it's possible to, I understand by what the planner Thomas said that the town is looking at coming up with a way of not allowing this, but I wonder if we could say yes, but have some clause that if they in the future develop, and by then, who knows, maybe this law is already implemented, but at least it's not grandfathered, because that's my concern, right? People ask variances, and in the future, there's a lot of, we don't know, people may tear apart a lot of the small houses to build bigger houses, and now we cannot say no. So if there is a dispositive to allow for that, so we do approve, because it is, to me, is a reasonable request, but it would not be a reasonable request if they decided to toward in the future.
Just back to Planner Thomas, in the future, were someone to demolish the the buildings on the lot closest to Gibsons Way, how large a building could they build on that square footage of the lot, complying with the variances that the setbacks that are currently within our bylaws without a variance?
So the property is zoned R3, and they're allowed a 50% lot coverage. Now they already have their garage that they're just finishing building. They'll also have that shared access on the west side that they won't be able to build into. And this is meant to be, I believe it's 6 meters for fire access. So it is a very contained building envelope. It's also 7.5 meters from the road and 7.5 meters from the rear lot line. What we could do is we have to bring this application back to council. So what we could do is we can look into the buildable area and also look at ways that we could write the variance so that it's for the existing building.
Because I would assume that in the future, were someone to redevelop that property, they would look at redeveloping, eliminate the garage, what's currently the office space, and the house, and build a new structure with a contained garage to, minimize their footprint on the lot, not have 2 separate buildings, just one. So it makes sense if there is a way that is viable to, limit this variance to the existence of the current buildings as they sit, and not open sort of opportunity going forward for further non-conforming buildings, if that makes sense. So, if there is a means of just containing the variance to the existing buildings, I would certainly have no problem in approving this development variance permit. Mr. Sutton, you look like you were wanting to say something.
No, I was just nodding in agreement. I'm hoping they're going to. That's definitely the right hand.
You were breaking up a bit there, sir.
Oh, my apologies. I was just nodding in agreement, indicating that I hope we can.
Okay, we're still losing part of you there. Planner Thomas, is this something that we can look into doing, and with that caveat, approve the request for the variance permit?
So right now the recommendation is to notify neighbors. So if you want to do that, we can notify the neighbors, and then when we bring the application with the community input, we can look at how a variance could be worded. Okay. And then you can decide at that point.
Okay, so for someone to move that the report titled Development Permit Variance for 744 Gibsons Way be received. We've done that, and that the Planning and Development Committee recommend notifying neighbors of the request for the variance at 744 Gibsons Way. Can I ask Councillor Dandretti, someone to second that? Mayor Beamish, thank you. Calling the question. Thank you. Alrighty. And just something I would mention, I had the opportunity today, speaking of notifying neighbors, I had the opportunity of meeting one of our new staff members today, Shane Castle, who's working with Mr. Newman, and he was out delivering handbills with respect to the traffic calming on Gibsons Way. And I just would like to welcome Mr. Castle and his family to, sadly, they're not living in Gibsons, they're living in Roberts Creek, as I discovered in conversation with them, but very personable young man, and I'd just like to welcome him to our staff and look forward to working with him. At this point, do we have any inquiries?
Thank you, Chair Kroll. At this point, I'll ask anybody in the meeting as an attendee to please use the raise the hand feature found at the bottom of the screen, and we'll turn on your audio and video so you can ask a question of council, or sorry, of the committee. And I'm not seeing any, Chair Kroll.
Thank you. At this point, if there aren't any other comments or concerns, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Mayor Beamish, Councillor Dandretti, calling the question. All in favor? Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. And sadly, this is, I believe, likely going to be the last Planning and Development Committee meeting in this format. The next time we meet, it will be in a new and hopefully improved format to get more public input and bring a little more involvement from the professional community around planning and development. So thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Take
See you
care.
all later.